Hey everyone, you're listening to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're talking about friendships. How do relationships change in midlife? Is it easier or harder to make new friends? Can we reconnect with friends from our past? How can we strengthen the friendships we have right now in this season? We cover all this and more. Let's get started. Hi, Julie.
Hi, Marie.
Hey, Mindy.
Hey, Marie.
It's great to see you guys.
Great to see you girls again.
We are back into the swing of school. And Mindy, I know that your kids are almost ready to go back. I see a huge beaming smile on your face. What's going on there?
Well, we aren't back in school yet. So we're kind of counting down the days of our last days of summer this week. So we sent Abby Ray back last week. We're trying to have fun. Well, I think I'm the only one that wants to have fun the last couple of days of summer. The boys are like, we're not going to be able to play Xbox next week. We have to play a bunch this week.
Get in those last few days.
They just need to go back to school.
Right. So all of our listeners in the Northeast and anywhere else in the country that doesn't go back till the end of August or after Labor Day, Mindy is right there fighting the good fight with you.
Yes, stay strong.
You are almost there.
You can do it. Yes.
Now, our school started a couple of weeks ago, but we are still in the throes of growing pains where it's really hard to get out of bed in the morning. People are fighting over whose turn is it actually to use the shower. And did we say we were leaving at 6:45? Oh, I really meant 6:50. You know those kind of pains at the beginning of the year.
Yes. Yep. Now, are the girls riding with Isaac? Does he drive them to school?
Oh, no, that would be way too much fighting.
I say that's a lot. How do you get 3 teenagers to leave at the same time in the morning?
Well, it's kind of been some fights. Isaac's taking up the girls' shower time. It's just not really working right now, but I think we're going to get into a groove.
Oh, my goodness. Yes.
Yes.
So how about you, Julie? What's going on with you?
Well, my youngest is at Lipscomb University, and as a junior, he spent the first 2 years at community college, and so he's transitioned over to the 4-year college. And, he was a little nervous about it all. They had orientation for a full week last week. And for transfer and commuter students, a lot of it was optional. So I was worried that he might opt out. But he didn't. He was involved in almost everything they did, left at 6:30 in the morning, came home at midnight. He was involved in everything. So I just couldn't have asked for a better start to the year. Wow. I said, this is the time to get engaged. This is the time to get involved and make those friends and, just put yourself out there. And he did. I was so proud of him.
I'm really impressed.
Yeah.
Way to go, David.
Yeah. So he started classes Monday, and he'll text me, I think I'm going to love this class. And just a lot of stuff that I wasn't expecting to hear.
Oh, that is so awesome. And for anyone else that has a college student, a few episodes back, we did college life and inside perspective. So if you have somebody that just went off to school, we interviewed my son, his fiance, and her sister, and they are all college students, and they were so cute in giving us what it's really like behind the scenes. And I think it will generally be encouraging for all of you parents. Well, we have got a fun topic today. We're talking about friendship. Friendship in midlife. Do women ever outgrow the need to analyze their friendships?
Obviously not.
No.
Do you ever hear men talking about friendships and how they've changed, or how are they going to get any friends, or just whatever?
No.
I don't think so. No,
definitely not. But I know that all of you women listeners out there are going to be like, yes, I need to hear about friendship in the midlife, because we're always interested in friendship, ways to make friends, ways to strengthen our friendships at any stage.
I do think maybe we get better about learning how to deal with mean girls, though.
Well, that could be true. We don't cry in public about it anymore, right?
Exactly. We drive our kids to toilet paper their houses.
Right.
I'm kidding. I haven't done that.
All right. Well, we want to talk about friendships. And one of the ways that we thought we would first talk about friendships was just to think back about friendships when we were first married until now. So we won't start all the way back in first grade. We'll move up to the adult level and think about from the time we've been married until now, how our friendships have changed. Maybe what we want is different, what we need might be different, if we have less friends or more friends. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I do think unlike, our formal relationships with family and with our spouses, friendships are the relationships that maybe take the biggest hit as we get busy in life. Like we have our family, we prioritize our husband and kids, but there's just a lot of demands on us that in midlife that are way more pressing than friendships. So I think friendships can kind of fall through the cracks. And that's one way I think that we just have to work harder to keep friendships going. And I know that I even consider my midlife spot maybe different than both of you. I'm a little further down, without kids in the house. And I just find myself having a little more time for that now, which is kind of exciting. Looking back, I think when we were first married, we had a lot of couple friends. I think I depended a lot on John for my friendships. He was the outgoing one. I was pretty shy and quiet, really didn't want to put myself out there. So a lot of my friends came from, he was friends with this man and then I was friends with the wife. That's just kind of how it was. Not as many friendships made on my own.
I know. I was thinking like how my friendships have changed. Really, like there's the season of Newlywed that Julie was referencing. And once you start having kids, that really separates you because your life changes so dramatically from, being a couple to now being parents and having this, child. And so then it seemed like all the years of when I had babies to preschool age children in the house, it was, I was desperate to meet other moms at the park. And I have a really good friend that we used to walk our kids in strollers. Then, when your kids get a little older and you're not meeting at preschool and you're not meeting at the park, well, because your kids are in school now. And so maybe you meet them in the classroom. And I remember being so desperate when my kids were in like elementary school to go out at night with girls, like to have girls' nights. And then when my kids became teenagers, I remember thinking, I'm too exhausted to go out for a girls' night. I just want to stay at home.
Yeah.
So it's amazing like how there's been different seasons of trying to get together with people and how friendships have changed over the years, really through the seasons of life. So now my friends, I really kind of have to meet them at the gym or go for a walk with them if I'm going to see somebody.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking back when we first got married, it was like, okay, well, you're a young couple and here's a young couple. Here, you guys should get together.
Yeah.
Right.
And that could be the only thing you have in common is that you're both young couple. But magically people expect that you're going to form a friendship and you do even kind of expect that of yourself.
Yeah.
So it seems like you just meet based on happenstance and your circumstances.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like I wasn't nearly as choosy because you were just looking for people in that same stage. I remember like before you had kids, we didn't want friends with kids. It was because they were tied down. They couldn't do anything.
They can't go out late at night.
Yeah. So you just wanted people that were in that exact same stage of life as you were.
Right. I can remember even when Abigail was a baby, I had a lot of mom friends that had one child, but then I met someone that had two children. And the idea of having two children was so foreign to me. I think she had a baby Abigail's age and then a 4-year-old. I thought, what would I possibly have in common with her? Like, as if that's just another planet.
Right.
Yeah.
So you did, Julie. You kind of looked for your exact situation, and those were the people you felt like you could be friends with.
That's so funny because, when thinking back to Newlyweds, Bryce and I didn't have anyone that was in our exact same position. I was 18 and he was 20 when we got married. When we met other couples, I was still a teenager. So it was hard to find other couples. And then when we had children, having children then kind of gives you a common denominator no matter what age you are, because then you go by the child's stage of life. That was kind of nice for friendships for me anyway. It got better when we had children, though harder to get together.
For sure.
I remember we had these friends in Memphis that did not have children, and we already had 2 of ours. They eventually did have children, but probably not for 10 years after ours were born. And they were our age. I was always just so amazed that they wanted to be around us because they were our closest friends. We did everything with them. And we would go to their house to watch a movie and we'd just take little cribs and put our kids to bed there and then wake them up and go home. They loved going out to eat with us, and we didn't have to get babysitters. I always looking back, I really appreciated them because not many people feel that way.
No, that's impressive.
Right. And it was probably easier for you to keep up that close friendship given the fact that they didn't have kids, because if you both had kids, now there's double the nap schedules and the this and that to work around.
Right.
That is very true. They could always just bend to what we needed. They were flexible.
Right, right. Well, do you think that you need or want different things in a friend at this stage of your life?
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on that in that I don't necessarily look for people that are exactly in the same stage or similar life situation. I'm much more willing to be friends with people outside of my regular circle, or maybe it's something I'm maybe a person I can learn something from, or maybe I have some wisdom to impart to them, or it's just a whole lot less about being just like me now. The whole stage of life thing is not nearly as important.
Right.
I feel like I'm still stuck in the stage of life, maybe, because that's why I love hearing Julie's perspective, because she is further down the road from us. Because right now it's really hard to make friends, but it's not impossible. Certainly not when you're desperate for them and you've just moved to a new place.
Right.
So desperation does lend itself to being willing to walk up to a stranger and say, "Hey, I've seen you in my class at the Y a couple of times. What's your name?"
Right. And do you need new friends?
Exactly. I'm totally
Takes courage.
available. Yeah. Like one of the first ladies I met, her name is Benita. She's 60 years old, and I'd seen her in my Zumba class, shaking it like she's 15. And I was like, I got to get to know this lady. And she's born and raised from Philadelphia. I was like, she's just a really cool lady to know. And I just started meeting, like Julie said, people of all different stages of life and ages and backgrounds and everything. And it's been really cool over the past year to look back and see how many connections I've been able to make, not through my children necessarily, but at the Y or at the grocery store. But also right now, we're going to be friends with the football team parents because we're about to spend hours and hours and hours on the sidelines of a football field with all these other parents. And so they're going to be our friends.
Right. There's some comfort in that. You think, well, I don't have friends yet, but I know I'm going to be spending a lot of time with these people. It will come.
I think you have to be willing and open to being friends with people that, you may not have ever thought, but it's amazing to meet people. And if you have any interest and you're open, I mean, people are willing to answer questions and get to know you. And you can tell the people that have room in their life for you and the people that don't, and that's okay.
Right. Do you think that you have more or less friends now than when you first got married? Well, Mindy, you obviously said that you have more friends, but you said it was really hard.
I have more.
Okay.
I feel like I do have more, though, especially because I've moved around. That group of friends has just grown. So I think in that way, I'm extremely blessed because in each place, you're always going to have like the close friends and you're going to have the people that you just know. I feel extremely blessed because there are a lot of women that I've met in places that I've lived that would be best friends. Those friends of the heart, those friends that you can go months and months and years and not talk and then talk and you still speak the same language. And it doesn't matter what stage of life your kids are in, So I feel like I have this treasure in these women that I've been able to meet.
Yeah. You just get to keep adding.
I do.
Adding new friends. Yeah.
I do.
If I'm going to look at this question a different way, I guess if I boil it down to, do I hang out with more people now or did I hang out with more people then? Right. I hung out with more people then.
Right.
I don't feel like I get together with as many people anymore. I really think that the older your kids get, it seems like the less you get together with your friends. When they're little, everyone just wants to get together and be able to talk, and then all your kids can play. And, that's like a way to pass the day or the evening or the time. As your kids get older and busier, and your friends' kids get older and busier, your schedules don't mesh. as easy and as often. And then as my kids get even older after that, I don't want to miss spending time with them in the evening. High school especially, you're like, oh man, they don't have that many years left to spend time in the evening with me. And you know how busy they get. It's like, oh, okay, are they going to be home on this random Tuesday? Well, I'm going to make it a special Tuesday because they already told me they're busy Friday, Saturday, and Sunday,
Right.
because they start making their own plans. And so you kind of wait for those opportunities to spend time with them. And I don't want to have filled up my schedule in case it happens to be a night that they're available. So I would say that I probably do get together with less than I did before. And then I think like my extended family, like especially my parents, they do live here. And if I do have a free night or something, I really try to maybe get together with them or invite them over because I just feel like it's such a treasure that they do live close enough to come over and play cards or see my kids. And I don't want to regret that I didn't do that. So it's like, I really try to fit that in. And, I feel like there's just a lot to juggle in the middle years.
Oh, yeah. That's why I was curious with Julie, with not having kids to schedule around. Are you able to get together with more women? Like, how do you handle getting together with friends at your stage?
Yes. That has been a really fun part of this whole transformation of empty nest. I would say that I probably get together with a lot more people now than I used to because I am freer in the day. It's still mostly daytime. I would say I reserve evenings for family. At first, the friend making skill can kind of atrophy because you haven't used it in so long. Like you said, Mindy, your friends kind of have been built in. They've been, if you worked, they were coworkers. If you were parents of teenagers, it was your kids' friends' parents that you were friends with, or the football team parents or whatever. You already had an excuse to spend time with them. So now I don't have that. I don't have a reason to get together with all these people so much anymore. So now I get to kind of choose who I want to connect with, and it's based on other things. What I'm interested in, what I want in a friend, and the kind of conversations that I want to have. That's been something different that's been fun. I can't say that I've met a lot of new people, but I've reconnected with old friends. Like there's one lady that we get together, we listen to this podcast that we both like. And we became friends because our daughters were friends in 5th grade. Well, her daughter lives in Canada. Mine lives in Texas. The girls are gone, but we are now reconnecting and we meet for coffee once a week and discuss that podcast. And we've been friends, but it's just now it can go deeper. Now we have more time and we can focus not just on our kids, but what we want to develop the friendship to be. So, yeah.
Marie, that's hopefully our future right there.
I know. I know. Because there are things like that I would like to do. This isn't a great example because I don't really want to do this, but Julie started bike riding with a couple ladies, but they went for like an hour and a half. And Julie said, Marie, you could get a bike and come with us. And I was like, well, I theoretically would love to spend an hour and a half with those ladies, but I don't want to bike for an hour and a half.
That's so funny.
But I also wouldn't do that at this point in my life because it would be taking away a night that my kids are home. And because my husband travels, if I'm not here, then my kids are just home by themselves. And it's not that they're not old enough to be home by themselves, but I want to be at home. If they're here, I want them to feel like their family was around,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not quite there yet, know?
It'll come. It'll come. And it really is something to look forward to.
Right. Yeah, I can definitely see that. All right. Well, let's move on to a related question, which would be, do you think it's hard for you to make new friends at this stage in life? Like, Julie, you were saying that you've reconnected with old friends, but do you feel like it's hard to make connections with new friends now that your kids are gone?
I have a kind of a funny story, and it's related to the bike riding women, because the lady that I did the bike ride with, I have probably known for more than 10 years, but I don't think we've ever gotten together and done anything together. But we are in book club together now. So one night at book club, she starts talking about bike riding with another lady. And then I walked by and they said, "Hey, would you like to go on a bike ride if we ever do this?" And I said, "Oh, sure, count me in." Well, she pulls out her calendar right then and says, "What about next Tuesday at 5:00?" So I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." So put me down. And that night of the bike ride, I was getting my son to help me get my bike on the bike rack. And he goes, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going on a bike ride with a friend." And he said, "Who?" And I said, "Miss Christian." And he goes, "Well, since when did you two start hanging out?" And I laughed and I said, "I guess tonight."
Right.
But it was kind of like I hadn't gone through the proper social channels before our first date kind of thing,
Right.
He thought it was just really weird. So I told Andrea that story and she goes, "Yeah, it just really is not so complicated when you're old." You just say, it's like, "Hey, you want to get together and ride bikes?" Sure. You don't have to go through all these well, we haven't texted enough. We haven't ever,
right.
I haven't ever been to your house. It was just like, "Okay, let's do this." And we did it, it's just simple. It's just a lot simpler now.
Right. That is true. I mean, to not have to think about anyone else's calendar except your own would be a completely foreign concept that I have really no idea what that feels like.
No.
But at some point I will know. I would say that it is hard to make friends at this stage in life only because of the time issue. So I just don't feel like I come in contact with a lot of new people because I feel like a time crunch. I don't add a lot of new things into my life. And so I tend to come in contact with the same people. So we're either friends or we're not by now. I feel like kind of, know. Because one of Julie's questions was try to recall when you met your most recent friend. Oh my goodness. I can't even think of a, in quotes, recent friend, like someone that I didn't know from Adam. I don't know. I guess probably neighborhood bunko. Someone in my neighborhood a couple years ago wanted to meet more people. So she put flyers on everybody's mailbox saying that she was going to start bunko. And that was really fun. I actually met people in my neighborhood that I have never met before. And we had all lived here, but the lots are kind of large. And as you walk by, you don't just like see somebody's front porch. It's not close enough to just call out a hello. So you don't tend to meet as many people. And it was really fun. So I guess I would say that bunko was probably my chance to meet my recent friends.
Do you feel like you connected with one particular person that you might call or talk to more than the others? Or
I think so. And I think it's probably based on stage of life again, because these were all different stages of life. But there is one mom who has a son the same age as my middle child, who's also a boy, and they attend the same high school. And so like, you don't even have to hardly say more than 2 words to each other. You know exactly what each other is feeling and thinking. And so I would probably say that's the strongest connection just because we have the most in common at this stage of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, my most recent friend was 3 weeks ago.
I knew you would have some stories here, Mindy.
And actually, this is a really cool thing. When we moved into our home, our next door neighbors were building this outdoor fireplace and put in a hot tub and stuff like that. So they walked over to meet us as we're moving in, and we find out that they have 3 boys, and their 3 boys are the same ages as my oldest 3 children. Their oldest son attends Villanova, which is just like 20 minutes down the road. And then they've got boys that are Grant's age and Jacob's age. Their younger 2 boys play football. So they just spent their summer. She spent her summer driving her middle son around to football recruiting camps. And I was like, okay, we're instantly, she has blonde hair, 3 boys. Her oldest son, I was like, he looks like he could be one of mine.
Right.
And they were just so sweet. They're right next door. So they're people that we can wave at and say hello to. And she invited me to the neighborhood book club. And so tonight we're going to see a movie together with the book club, and I'll meet some more neighbors. But I'm completely excited about my new friend.
That's wonderful. And I definitely think moving, you are forced to flex those muscles. They don't become as atrophied as those of us who have not moved recently.
Right. And it is exhausting to think about making new friends. It's exhausting and kind of lonely and depressing to not know anybody. And so you have to have enough, I'll call it courage, bravery to make yourself get out there and meet people, because I literally could send Bryce to work and the boys to school and stay in my house in my own little world and never meet anybody. But I couldn't live like that.
I remember the hardest part when we moved here about making new friends was that feeling of just wanting to fast forward and have old friends that knew you and that knew your past a little. And I'll never forget, I was invited to Wendy Tate's 40th birthday party. And I had only been here under 5 years, so I considered myself new still, 2 or 3 years. And I walk in and there's probably 50 women there. They all know her so well. And it's just, and I was, grateful to be invited. And I've since gotten to know those women really well. And I just left in tears, cried the whole way home of all the depth of those friendships. They had known each other for years. And I just wanted that. They were friends, but I didn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it kind of came full circle because 15 so years later, Wendy's given my daughter a wedding shower and surrounded. And then I had that, but that just takes time. And you just want to rush that part, but you can't. It's just those memories are built over time and experiences together.
Right.
Well, that kind of leads into long distance type friendships. And I want to talk about this because I feel like my parents do an awesome job of this. And they have talked before, Julie, about what you just said, how they just miss friends that know you. They know your history because they lived in Western New York until they were almost 50, and then they moved to Tennessee.
Oh,
so
wow.
you have, they raised their family there. They had all their memories there. And then my dad got a job here in Tennessee, and they wanted to be near their 3 children that were already living here. But they had to leave everything behind, and you start from scratch at around age 50. You're not involved in the kids' sports anymore and the traditional things where we might meet. They have done a great job with keeping up with the friends that they left behind. They've gone on cruises together. They've gone on vacations together. Some of those friends have since moved to the southern part of the United States, Florida, and some other people in Tennessee, and they'll get together periodically. I think once in Kentucky, they get together a couple times a year. Wherever they can connect, they'll go back up to Western New York every few years and spend a week visiting all their friends. They really try to keep those friendships up, and it's something that I don't feel like I've been as good about doing, even though I miss the friends I left behind too. I think I was at a different stage of life, though, when I left. I had 2 young kids and was about to have a third, and trying to integrate myself into a new community and new schools and everything. It was hard to keep up with people that I had already left behind, but I regret not doing that more.
Maybe it's not too late, later, even when your kids are gone,
Right.
to reconnect with them.
Well, and I do think that's true because a few years ago we went up for one of our friends' 50th birthday parties, and people couldn't believe that we had come just for the party. But it was, I think, New Year's Eve, so it was a great time to go. And it had been, I don't know, probably 10 years since I'd seen some of those people, but you could pick up practically from the second you had stopped.
Yeah.
Like those early years are so bonding when you have kids and you're young, married and all that, that it is easy to pick up later. So I do think about that. I think about, well, when my kids are gone, I want to see if some of those friends want to go on vacation together or meet somewhere because I still miss them.
Yeah. You do that too, Mindy.
Yeah.
Cruise with your old friends.
I do. And it's funny because, all right, so the question is, how good are you at keeping up with long distance friends? And my answer is, I'm great.
You are good, Mindy.
Like, this is the one time I have no holds. I yes, I'm great at this. Actually, the thought that I had was, I feel like it's easier with long distance friends. So like when Grant had those football recruiting camps and I saw where we were going to go. And then I realized, oh, I have friends here, 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 and here in that circle of places that we're going to be going. And so I just texted each person that, that I was really close to in those areas. And I got to see a bunch of friends while taking my son on football recruiting trips. And then I do have a set of friends that we go cruising together every couple of years. I felt like it's almost easier with long distance friends. That's pretty much most of my friends, because you kind of give yourselves the grace that you're not going to be able to get together very often. So then when you talk or when you get together, it's extremely intentional and you're just all in. Whereas it's harder for me right now in this stage of life to get together with the people I live near because I'm so busy. You kind of wonder why, my friend lives right across town. Why haven't I seen her in months? Why haven't we talked in months? Well, like you think, well, we live close. We should be able to do that. But then you can't,
I do have these 3 friends in Memphis. When we lived near each other, we spent every New Year's Eve together. We stayed up all night and there were 9 kids. Everybody stayed up all night. It was just really, really fun. And then once we moved, we would still go back and spend New Year's Eve with them.
Right.
Then it just got harder and harder and harder because kids started dating and then they didn't want to bring that person or then they got married and then you felt like you needed to be with your own family on New Year's Eve. So we just stopped getting together altogether. We just didn't get together. So we decided it doesn't have to be New Year's Eve because that's our family time. Let's pick another time of year. These are the 3 women that I've traveled with the last 2 summers. And that's kind of been our new thing of how we're going to get together. We're all a little bit freer as far as family commitments.
Right.
And, we have a little group text that we send jokes and reminders about the trips and pictures. And it's just a really fun way to keep up. And you're right. If I don't get to talk to them for several months, nobody thinks anything's wrong.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, how do you think that social media fosters or hinders friendship?
Well, I think it does both. I think that's a kind of a tricky question. I think we're able to stay connected better than ever, but I think that we really shouldn't confuse connection with friendship. I read somewhere recently that on Facebook, the average number of friends that people has is 800. Well, first of all, I am way below average.
I am too.
That made me feel really bad. But they say when they ask how many of those people could you call in the middle of the night with a real crisis, most people said 2.
Oh.
That's really telling. Like we're spending a whole lot of time keeping up, pleasing this crowd of people that we couldn't even call, I don't know. I think we keep up with more people, but it's probably on a more shallow level. I don't think it deepens friendships as much. It keeps them alive. Maybe you remember their birthday or you can like things about them, but I don't know that it deepens friendships.
Well, I think that social media has done a disservice a little bit. I was thinking about the friends that I said I haven't kept up with long distance. I used to call once or twice a year until I got on Facebook. Right. Then once I got on Facebook, I felt like I already knew the in quote highlights. And so it's like, oh, well, what would I call? I can't say what have you been up to because I kind of sort of know.
Yeah.
Or you sort of have this kind of vague sense that you already know what's going on with that person. But watching somebody's life on Facebook from afar is not a substitute for talking to them.
Right. It's true.
Right.
I was thinking like it gives you, those people that you're really close with. It gives you an opportunity to see, oh, their child just had this wonderful thing happen. I can take a minute and I know how they're doing and I can kind of write them a little message. And so you do kind of get to keep up with their life without actually having to keep up by phone.
I know recently I was reading a book on digital minimalism and it said, try to use social media to find ways to connect in real life instead of liking it or saying, wow, amazing or whatever, call them up. So I had this friend who I haven't connected with in years. We used to homeschool together, hardly ever see her. And she had taken this amazing trip to Israel. So I messaged her and said, I want to hear all about your trip to Israel. Would you meet me for coffee? And we did. She was so happy to share about it. And I could have just looked at her pictures and hit like, and, but it was just, I thought, okay, I'm going to do this to make a connection with her in real life. So I think that's kind of a cool way to use it. Social media can make you aware of things, but then how you respond can be more personal.
Good.
Yeah, that's really neat. We wanted to talk a little bit about a C.S. Lewis essay that Julie had brought up.
If you're not familiar with it, I'll just summarize it before we start to talk. One of C.S. Lewis's most memorable essays is entitled The Inner Ring, and it describes the experience and desire of us at various stages of life to be accepted within the inner ring of whatever group matters to us at that time. To feel excluded or left out is a miserable feeling, but the desire to be in can make us do and say things that we shouldn't or that we wouldn't otherwise say. This desire can affect our work, our relationships in our community, and even our church. This could be the desire to be accepted by the cool kids, to be the partner in the firm, to be the partner on a tennis foursome, or just to feel included. There's nothing wrong with being those things, but it's our motivation that Lewis warns us about. He says if we're not careful, we can make compromises, usually small and subtle at first, but we're eventually faced with a choice that will be at a crossroads that either moves us towards virtue or vice. And these compromises lead to another and another and another until it becomes a habit that shapes our character. And he says, as long as we're governed and controlled by that desire, we'll never get what we want. It's kind of like peeling an onion. He says, as soon as you get in, you'll find another ring, another circle that you want to be in, because the excitement doesn't last. He said, so what do? You do good work. You treat people fairly and rightly to put you in the circle that really matters. That leads to respect and often to friendship with those that value the same things you value. And he goes on to say that inner rings are unavoidable. They infiltrate every part of our life. And when I read that, it's like, wow, that is so true. It doesn't have to be any kind of a formal society like a fraternity or sorority. It can just be the clique at church, the whatever at the neighborhood bunco, whatever.
Yeah.
You longed for people to say we and us, to be included.
Right. What did you think about that when you read it, Mindy?
It was so good. And it did make me ponder how I felt about what he said when I was younger versus now. Like now I feel like, I've learned not everybody's going to like me, and I'm okay with that. Not spin my wheels trying to get someone or hold a person's interest that really you don't have anything in common with. I'm too tired and exhausted to try to make somebody my friend if it's not going to just work. It has to be like a plant that you don't have to care for, that it just blooms.
Yeah, I don't think we outgrow this inner ring desire, even at midlife, if we're honest with each other. We've had this inner ring desire since our earliest memories. I mean, I can remember living in a neighborhood when I was probably in kindergarten and really, really wishing I was better friends with the girl across the street because she had just such a cool bedroom and mine was not that cool. You can picture even from your earliest memories having these longings. And it's true what he says, you're never satisfied. And one of the things he talks about is how many times have you had people that you could have been friends with that would have actually been really good for you and been good friends, and you ignore them or minimize them in favor of trying to get in with this group that you perceive as more cool or more popular.
So true all through school. You think that person with the cool bedroom, that might have been all they had to offer.
Right.
and you missed out on somebody else that wasn't as flashy or whatever, that didn't get your attention. But yeah, it really is easy to miss out on other things when your focus is just to get in and be accepted.
Well, and I think what C.S. Lewis is saying is that no matter how many groups we're in, we will still always have that desire because he's saying there's one more ring. You can't reach the inner ring.
Right.
Yeah. And he said until you overcome the fear of being on the outside, you'll always be on the outside. And this was the positive into it, is he said, friendships are legitimate inner rings. Sometimes confidential conversations are necessary. You need to talk with someone one-on-one, or you socialize with people that you have things in common with. And small groups do form. There's nothing wrong with that. The difference is the secrecy is accidental and the exclusiveness is a byproduct. A situation came to mind that I learned a while back from someone much younger than myself. We were part of a homeschool tutorial that only met one day a week, and we were new. A lot of the kids had been together for years. There were two girls, this was high school age, that were best of friends, and they chose on that day when we came together to not sit together at lunch, not to talk to each other, because they wanted to give the appearance that their circle was open. And I know when my daughter came in, she felt like there was room for her. Their philosophy was, we get to spend as much time outside of this day together, talking, building our friendship. So why would we come here when it's public and just gravitate to each other? Because that would seem so close. And haven't we all been in situations where we show up somewhere and it looks like, looks like everybody's already paired off. All the friends are, and there's just no room for me. So I just thought that was such a really good way to approach things. So now, just kind of recently, I've felt more comfortable doing that. You know, like when I was younger, I had to know if my best friend was going to be at this thing or I wasn't going, because I had to kind of latch on to her. And even at church events, you know, like Marie, it's like, hey, Marie, you going to this? I don't want to go by myself, you know, and now I try to think, okay, if it's in a large public group and my best friends are there, I don't need to spend my time with them there because I get to see them anytime I want. So let's talk to the new people. Let's talk to the...
Thank you, Julie. I love that.
And that is really hard to do because you want to go where you're comfortable. And that is not something I have always done. And that's a confession.
I love hearing that. I think when you've been the new person, it's maybe easier to try to look out for the new person. But at the same time, you think, oh, I'm just so glad that's not me anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So as we've gotten to midlife, do you guys think there's any friendships that you guys have let go?
I would say yes. And I would also say it's okay. Because I think some people, when you've not had to let friendships go, you really ponder, you know, is it okay? You know, is that allowed? And it is. I read once somewhere that there were two types of friends. There's friends of the heart and friends of the road. Your friends of the heart are those friends that it doesn't matter your stage of life. It doesn't matter who your husband is, who your children are, where you live. Those are the people that I mentioned earlier. You can go months, even years without talking to and get together or talk on the phone or text. And you're just right in sync with each other. And it's those people that you may not have known them a long time, but it's that same language. Then there's friends of the road, and the friends of the road are the people that are in the same life stage. Maybe they're friends with your husband. You're on the sidelines with them during a season of football or lacrosse. Those are the people also that once your children get out of football or lacrosse, you don't really see them anymore. Mm-hmm. But you know what? You need both. Right. You need the friends of the road and you need the friends of the heart. And it's not that the friends of the road don't sometimes become friends of the heart. Mm-hmm. But I've always kept that in my mind that it's okay that sometimes there's seasons for friendship. The Lord will bring people in and out of our lives sometimes, and it's okay. You both needed each other desperately during that time, but maybe the need is gone.
Mm-hmm. It's still hard, though.
It is hard. It is. I've had to do it so much that it's always nice to pick back up, or when you see that person, or maybe that is a person on Facebook, you know, that you can just kind of say, hey, I love seeing your kids now grown and at their wedding that we used to, you know, watch them play soccer when they were in preschool together. But yeah, you just, you know, maybe you don't have much in common anymore. So yes, it's okay to let friendships go sometimes. And it doesn't always have to be a bad thing.
Right. I struggle with that because when I run into people who I maybe were more friends of the road, I feel really bad that I haven't kept up with that friendship. Like, and I miss them too, but I don't know how to get back started again because the roads aren't the same anymore. So you don't know maybe how to go forward. Can either of you guys relate to that?
Well, when you move, you don't run into them anymore.
All right, Julie. What do you do about
Julie,
that?
why don't you answer that?
Yeah, this is a hard question for me because that has happened. I'm just trying to realize that when friendships end in this stage of life, I think it's usually circumstantial. You know, it's due to something outside the friendship. I try to look at it that way. And that maybe when things change, like maybe it's a new job or a move or a kid's transitioning to a different stage of life or whatever, that maybe when those things change, that friend might come back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's not that anything's wrong or there's no bad blood between us, you know.
Right.
But some friends just seem to have kind of fallen through the cracks or that friendship's kind of withered. and I don't know why, but
Mm-hmm.
I would be willing for them to come back at any time. And that's where I have to let go of like, well, I've done the calling, I've done the asking, I've done the initiating this many times, so I'm done. I can't do that. I have to say, I'm still here. I would love to be friends and hope that when life changes, maybe we will,
Right.
Yeah, it did give me hope when you said your friend that Molly and her daughter were friends and you kind of grew apart and now the girls are so far away and your friendship is now flourishing.
Yeah,
So
and I don't even
you've
know how
been
much
able
the
to-
girls keep up.
So I love that you've been able to come back to that. So see, there's this whole nother stage, Marie. We're just not quite there yet.
I know. Think of all the friends we're going to have in the next stage.
Exactly.
I think every friend was there. I think you said this, Mindy, for a reason and maybe just for a season. And you have those memories with them. You probably learned a lot from them.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they'll come back.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, for listeners out there that are thinking of any of these examples in their life, I hope that you're encouraged by our talk and our experiences. And we would love to hear how friendship has played out in your life as you've gone too, because it's different for everyone. Even amongst the three of us, everybody has different personalities and different ways they've dealt with things. But I do think that it's a commonality among everyone that we want friends, we need friends, and we want to do a good job of strengthening those friendships. I know that if you get together with friends to do a podcast, your friendships will automatically strengthen.
That's right.
So if you are considering that, just let us know and we'll be sure and listen in.
Friendships with a purpose.
Right.
That's right.
All right. Well, all you friends that are listening out there, we have a new segment that we are adding just this week because we love this in other podcasts.
Exactly.
So we are going to add things that we are a fan of. Things that we are a fan of can be anything. They can be shows, movies, books, products, ways of behavior, something we've done in our house, anything that we are a fan of. And we will always put links to those in our show notes. All right, so who wants to kick it off? Things that we are a fan of.
Mine is an app.
Julie, you are going technological, the oldest among us, and yet she's the most tech savvy.
I know.
Yeah, and the people that really know me are probably laughing because it's an app called Waterlog, Waterlogue. And it's where you take any of your photos from your photo library and turn them into a watercolor.
Ooh.
And it's really neat because if you wanted to print maybe a scenic picture from a vacation, but wanted it to look more artistic, you can turn it into probably 8 or 10 different watercolors. Like some could be really loose and others could be really tight or more illustrated. And sometimes I've used it if I'm trying to convert a real picture to a watercolor that I'm trying to do because I don't know how to make it, like what's important and what's not in the picture.
That's a great idea.
That's how I've used it, but it's also cool to just print a picture off and then you have a watercolor.
Yes. Now, is that a free app?
I believe it is, yeah.
That's
Pretty sure
awesome. We will definitely put a link to that in our show notes. Mindy, what do you have for us?
Wow. Okay. So in our new house, I needed placemats for my dining table because the table is actually a little temperamental. You can't set things that are really hot on it. It'll turn white. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Right.
So I'm like, we're going to tear this table up. I love it. It's my round table. At the same time, I need to protect it. So I went to the home goods store first and I found some 6 table mats for $15. And I'm like, these are awesome. They're not my favorite, but okay. So then I went to Target though, and I found these 100% jute circle table mats, and they're so beautiful. I'm taking the ones back to Home Goods.
Okay.
But because the ones from Target are just so cute. They just are adorable. They add character to my table while also being a natural fiber. So, there's not a crazy color, which I like neutral colors with pops of accents here and there. So I love my new table mats from Target. They made my table so cute and adorable. And I'm already telling my boys, like, don't eat on them. I don't want you to mess them up.
That's the thing about
I did notice
placemats
them.
is you get them with the theoretical idea that they're going to protect your table while people eat. And then I don't want people to eat on them.
No.
So you
last
realize
night,
that means catching all that food.
we're sitting down and I showed you, like, I made salmon and then we had the cauliflower feta salad that I put on top of my salmon. And I'm sitting there watching my 3 orangutan boys and they cannot keep anything on their plates. And I'm just like, give me the table mat. Like, you keep dropping stuff. And they are jute. I mean, I really can spot clean. But I'm like, I don't want salmon
Right.
on my
I know. That's so true.
Anyways, yeah.
Yes.
I'm keeping them though. I'm keeping my table mats.
Awesome.
Give them a vinyl placemat.
Yes, like those ones that they give little kids
Yeah.
with the
I'm
spot for
trying-
your milk and the spot
I
for your plate and
know.
fork.
We are still in that stage, I feel like, with teenagers, but I'm determined to have a cute table.
I know. Well, I am going to share something for anyone out there who struggles with gift giving for a man.
Ooh.
So Father's Day, a couple months ago, I think we talked about this in our Father's Day episode. I can never think of anything good to give. And my husband couldn't think of anything good I'd ever given him either. But this year I actually had a really good idea. And it is the company Wohven, Wohven. It's a t-shirt subscription for men. So they get 1 t-shirt a month. It's $13, which I think is pretty reasonable for a nice t-shirt. And the t-shirts are really nice. They have a logo, and I'll put some on our Instagram stories this week of different ones that they've had. Like over the summer,
But
they were
not
kind of
saying.
summery.
It's not like
No, not writing. Just neutral type, kind of
okay.
hipstery type logos. Now, someone's going to look at that and be like, that is not a hipster logo. But to my midlife eyes, they look like a hipster
That's
logo.
right. Yes.
Okay.
And the first time a t-shirt came, my 2 15-year-old twins, they're girls, they both said, I'm stealing that t-shirt. So I feel like that says a lot if high school girls want that t-shirt. So anyways, we will put links to Wohven, the t-shirt subscription company. We will put a link to Mindy's Target placemats and Julie's Waterlogue app. All 3 of those are something that someone out there can use.
That's right.
All right, you guys, it was great talking to you this week, and I'm so glad that we get to continue our own friendship on this podcast next week.
Oh, yes. Great talking to
Yes.
you, girls.
All right, we'll see you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye. We're so glad you joined us today. If you're a fan of Midlife Matters, please tell a friend and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. We also hope that you'll follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. This is where you can see the things that we talk about on each episode, and we'd love the chance to get to know you better in the comments. You can also contact us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next Wednesday.